I am here to remind you that it is absolutely okay if you have an entirely different family dynamic as compared to the people around you. In fact, as a therapist trained in family therapy modality, I am here to tell you that family relationships, especially healthy ones, comes in all shapes and sizes. We are brought up to believe that a healthy family relationship means we talk about things with our family, we share things, we um, probably have like a mother and a father and good relationships with our siblings. You know what? That's perfect. That's ideal, but it is not the same for all of us. So if you see someone opting out to go back to visit their families during the festive season, or if you are someone that dread to go back home during the festive season, know that it is okay. And there is so much more than you not being filial, you being a quote unquote bad kid behind this. So let's dive into this, shall we? I guess we can't talk about family without talking about the concept of family in today's age is definitely evolving very, very much. It's so diverse. There are different kind of marriage. There are step families. There are grandparents who have to take up of a role of the parents, maybe because of work or maybe their parents are not around all the time or not around, hence the diversity and the complexity of a family. And what on earth does healthy boundaries in family relationships look like then if there are just so many of these different kinds of families out there? I think the rule of thumb to a healthy family relationship is that you can be your own you in the family. And what does that look like? If I were to explain this to a 5-year-old, I would say that you get to choose your clothes. You get to wear pink, you get to wear blue, you get to wear green, you get to choose what you want without being heavily influenced or trying to make that decision just to reject certain idea of your family. And healthy boundaries means you get to connect with others and have meaningful relationships with your family members while still being your own self. For example, if I choose to become a doctor, I know that I'm making this decision. I can seek advice from my parents, from my family members, from my siblings, but they don't necessarily make the decision for me, right? And so many youngsters goes to therapy, and especially those who are almost ending their high school and starting to figure out what course to take next, always comes in, and it may sound like it's just a career counseling, but it always drives back to the family history. And of course, I have to introduce two very important concepts when it comes to family dynamics. One is called enmeshment, second is called disengagement. And what does this two means? Enmeshment, you can think of it like, the thread of our shirt, right? They are so interwoven together. I don't know if that's a word, but they're so woven together that if you separate it, it's gonna like break down. In a family, if there's a lot of enmeshment happening, one person's emotion would highly affect everyone's emotions. So for example, when a mother feels anxious, the kid will immediately feel anxious, and everything and all the decisions happening around would kind of like enmesh into one another. On the flip side, disengagement looks like different people on different island and they try not to engage with one another. Like when one person feels something, instead of being empathetic and trying to make that meaningful connection, this engagement would look like them separating themselves or avoiding very, very much away from that connection. The ideal type is where we are in the middle, but of course, we know that that's almost impossible. We try our best to come into the middle as much as possible. So, if you look at it that way, for some family who has a lot of big high and lows of emotions going on together, some people might find it best to distance themselves in order to move towards the middle, right? To the middle, healthy engagement connections with their family. However, for some people who are already on the disengagement side, it is actually more important for them to come closer to the family to make those meaningful connections while being their own person. So if you ask me how healthy boundaries look like, I would say if, let's say, meeting your family too often tires you out, and if it makes you anxious, and if it makes you feel all those big emotions that you can't really contain, and you start feeling like, whoa, all over the place, maybe having some space from one another is great. However, if you're on the flip side and if you find it hard to even talk about your family, maybe finding tiny little connections would be great. So being your own self, being your own self despite having those connection with your family members is called differentiation. I'm throwing a lot of jargons out here, but do feel free to look them up. I personally stand by all this concept. I really love this concept because it's flexible enough to be applied to different family dynamics, but it's also structured enough to help you stay grounded whenever you're being sucked into different chaos. And of course, coming from an Asian background, we all know that talking about family sometimes means betraying our family, and there is this sense of guilt talking our family. I am here to remind you that talking about your family relationship in therapy session is not being ungrateful or not being disrespectful and not betraying your family members. On the flip side, I believe that it actually would help you see your family members or see your family dynamic in a more objective light. And that would probably help you differentiate yourself better when it comes to communication, when it comes to relating yourself with your family members. And before I end, I would like to share this post that I saw on Reels and I've shared it on my stories. And I guess that really pushed me to make this episode. And it goes, I cook rice the way my mother taught me when I was 10 years old. I peel my apples before I eat them because that's how my father did it. I watch movies differently now because a friend I haven't seen in 4 years once told me that every scene could have an implied message. And I enjoy hearing some of the father's jokes just because he used to tell me the whole way home. There are songs I can't listen to anymore because they remind me of the people I used to love. We are somehow a little part of everyone we have met in our lives. And even if they leave, there are some pieces of them that are still inside us as a home, as a lesson, or maybe a story worth telling. It's kind of our choice now. A. Dimitri. And I think that perfectly paints how family dynamics look like. And I think there it talks a little bit about grief as well, which is a whole nother topic. But really, what's beautiful about being able to differentiate yourself a little bit better is that you're able to see the story generations and generations of stories in such different light, and perhaps you will grow more appreciation towards it. Perhaps you will know what to take away from the family resiliency that you've seen as you grow up. This wraps up for our final episode of Therapy Wisdom. If you want to see more of this content, feel free to subscribe, like, and definitely follow me on my social medias. I try to be as active as possible. It's just a one man show here, and sometimes it gets a little bit chaotic, but I do enjoy this journey. Yeah, with that said, I'm closing off this video and I'll see you next week actually for a really amazing collaborative video coming up. I'll see you again. Bye.